It seems like every month there's a new celebrity death hoax making the rounds on social networks. The latest victim of this morbid trend is TV talk show host Jimmy Fallon. Is Jimmy Fallon dead? Well, no, but this latest online death hoax is yet another clear example of why you shouldn't believe every sensational thing you hear or read. Stick around to learn about the Jimmy Fallon death hoax as well as several others. The R.I.P. Jimmy Fallon hoax explained. We live in a day and age when actual facts are a rare commodity. With the rise of the internet and social media, anyone with any agenda can perpetuate whatever idea or information they want, regardless of whether the knowledge they're spreading is actually true. During the early days of the internet, people were saying humankind was entering into a brand new, optimistic, and egalitarian information age. But it's become increasingly clear we're living in the disinformation age. Because of how quickly information can spread and how algorithms prioritize content that stimulates user engagement, we've begun to drift from consuming info that's the truth. Simply put, the more absurd, sensational, or alarming information is, the higher chance it'll go viral. Gullibility is at an all-time high. People always have fallen victim to hoaxes, but it seems like in recent times, it's no longer just your weird drunk uncle. As you've probably witnessed firsthand by now, just about everyone at this point has fallen victim to at least one internet hoax. While Jimmy Fallon would be perfectly justified in reacting to this particular trend in anger, fortunately, he's decided to instead join in on the jokes. Not long after the R.I.P. Jimmy Fallon hashtag started making the rounds, he directed a tweet at Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, including the hashtag asking if he could do anything to, quote, fix this. Quite a few Twitter users believe that the Fallon death hoax trend got its start with a tweet shared by user Eclipse Shade that featured a black and white photo of James Corden, tweeted with a caption that read, "Gone but not forgotten, rest easy king, September 19th, 1974 to November 15th, 2022, R.I.P. Jimmy Fallon." Obviously, if that is indeed where the hoax originated, it was clearly meant as a joke. But since the tweet went viral and the R.I.P. Jimmy Fallon hashtag has proceeded to take on a life of its own, the Twitter user who posted the first supposed tweet has since clarified that they never expected for something that they intended to be taken as satire to blow up as it did. "Fallon is alive and hope he's doing well," wrote the user. While that explanation for the hoax's origin seems plausible, Lake County, Florida News reported the trend might have started with a fake Tonight Show account that shared a manipulated photo of Fallon along with a false birth year that claimed he had passed away. In response to the sudden influx of tweets featuring the R.I.P. Jimmy Fallon hashtag, dozens of stars have either spoken out or joined in on the fun by tweeting their own take on the trend. The majority of tweets make it clear that the users know full well that Jimmy Fallon is alive and well, but even so, there are still thousands of accounts that are spreading the false information as if it was gospel truth. Fallon is not the first or last celebrity death hoax victim. Back in 2013, not long after the death of former UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, the hashtag #NowThatcher'sDead began trending around the globe. It didn't take long for folks online to misread the phrase as "Now that Cher's dead," and for a brief moment, the Life After Love singer was thrust into the center of the internet news machine. Fortunately, just like Fallon, Cher's not dead, but she is one of many stars who have been falsely declared dead by dubious reporting or a completely ill-intentioned hoax. Lil Wayne ended up in the hospital in March of 2013 after suffering a seizure. While Wheezy really was facing health issues at the time, reports that began circulating that he was being given his last rites were straight up baloney. That afternoon, the Young Money rap mogul tweeted that he was doing well while thanking everyone for their prayers and love. Not long after that, he began touring to promote his latest album at the time, I Am Not a Human Being 2. So actually, on second thought, maybe he was trying to tell us something. Was Lil Wayne actually replaced by an AI cyborg? We may never know. In 2011, a Facebook group called Jackie Chan RIP earned more than 150,000 likes within hours of its creation. Earlier that year, in March, Chan was once again falsely reported to be deceased after supposedly suffering a heart attack. Nothing new. Now, you might be under the impression that the celebrity death hoax trend is a modern phenomenon, but in reality, false reports of stars' deaths have been circulating for ages. One of the most famous examples of a celebrity death hoax gaining traction with the public and giving birth to wild tinfoil hat conspiracy theories started making the rounds in the late 1960s. Paul McCartney is 1/4 of the legendary rock band The Beatles. Back in the 60s, the Beatles were pretty much the biggest thing since sliced bread, but with all the attention and fanfare came a fair share of whack jobs who started reading too deeply into their lyrics, looking for hidden messages. While the whole helter-skelter Charles Manson connection is one of the most famous examples of this bizarre phenomenon, another conspiracy that emerged out of the murky waters of Beatlemania was the Paul is dead theory. Many believed that McCartney had been replaced by an imposter after meeting some kind of grisly death. The album cover for the band's record Abbey Road further fueled the myth, as many fans interpreted it as a funeral procession with the barefoot McCartney representing a corpse and the white-clad Lennon as a priest. Paul responded to rumors of his demise by repeatedly denying that he had died. He once even told the BBC that if people reached the conclusion that he was dead, then they were wrong because he was alive and living in Scotland. Another famous example of an early celebrity death hoax involved the since-deceased actor Sean Connery. In 1993, the 007 star went on The Late Show with David Letterman to dispel rumors that he had met his demise. The rumors apparently started with the death of one of Connery's friends in Spain, retired Formula One world champ James Hunt. Following Hunt's death, a story began to circulate naming the deceased individual as James Bond. It didn't take long for the news to spread to Japan, with reports of another recently deceased person, Texas Governor John Connally. Naturally, something got lost in translation, and it started to be reported that it was in fact Connery who had met his end, not Connally or Hunt. Fortunately, Sean Connery was able to quickly clear things up by making that public appearance on Letterman. It's crazy to think just how quickly false intel can spread online. If such hoaxes were able to spread so rapidly in the pre-internet era, it only makes sense that they would spread exponentially quicker in the modern, everyone connected all the time age. We're happy to inform you that Jimmy Fallon is doing just fine, but may this recent hoax serve as a humbling example of just how important it is to check your sources and do some research before spreading shiny, sensational information. In other words, think before you tweet. If it sounds questionable, it probably is. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you fall for the R.I.P. Jimmy Fallon hoax? Or did you know better? And can you think of any other stars who have been falsely reported as dead? Let us know in the comments section below.